Two people sit in a quiet room. One of them is carrying a heavy, invisible weight. Before a single word is spoken, the clinician faces the immediate challenge of measuring human suffering. The problem is that the human mind operates in a vacuum. You cannot physically see anxiety or directly measure a memory. The clinician has to somehow look inside a struggling mind and extract objective facts without reducing a complex person to a simple label. That immense responsibility is why psychological assessment is tightly regulated. According to Principle 4 of the Code of Ethics, this evaluation has to be a rigorously fair process. It demands valid protocols that gather objective data while fiercely protecting the patient's privacy. But an ethical framework alone isn't enough to understand a patient. The clinician relies on a structured system of observation. This process funnels scattered, highly subjective behaviors, like a tremor or an averted gaze, into a singular, organized stream of clinical data. Filtering a person's behavior through this strict, highly structured framework is the only way to accurately map their psychological functioning. The primary tool for gathering that data is the clinical interview. This requires the therapist to maintain active listening and offer unconditional empathy, creating a safe posture of understanding where the patient feels comfortable sharing. But human connection carries a risk. Clinicians naturally experience emotional responses to what they hear, a phenomenon called countertransference. To keep the evaluation clear, the therapist has to actively identify and contain those personal feelings. Unstructured interviews flow freely, relying on organic connection. Structured approaches follow strict scripts, increasing diagnostic reliability. This contrast exists in testing. Objective tests provide quantitative, standardized results. Projective tests present ambiguous material, giving space for imagination. By pairing empathetic, fluid conversation with rigorous scientific testing, the clinician builds a multidimensional view of the patient that neither method could achieve in isolation. While the patient speaks, the clinician is quietly observing a secondary layer, the microbehaviors. Every detail of a patient's physical presentation feeds into the psychopathological description. They watch facial mimicry closely. A patient might display excessive joy or present with hypomimia, a mask-like poverty of expression. Clinicians also measure quantitative changes in movement. They are looking for the extreme ends of the spectrum, from the high acceleration of severe psychomotor agitation all the way down to stupor, where movement is completely inhibited. Then there are qualitative motor anomalies. A patient might exhibit involuntary mannerisms or a condition known as echopraxia, where they automatically mirror observed actions. A rigid posture or a sudden blank stare maps the immediate distance between a patient's internal experience and their external world. Below those physical movements lie the deepest layers of the examination. The clinician must navigate the invisible architecture of cognition, beginning with the baseline level of consciousness. Visualizing consciousness as a scale tracks quantitative reductions. It starts with mild drowsiness, obnubilation, and sinks past stupor to a total coma. But consciousness can break qualitatively. Delirium fractures attention and orientation, inducing highly vivid, distressing hallucinations. Evaluation of memory requires the clinician to move from simple amnesia, the total loss of information, into the active distortion of existing memories. These distortions are called paramnesias. In confabulation, the brain seamlessly invents highly detailed false events simply to plug the gaps where real memories are missing. Memory and recognition can bend so far that they create delusional misidentification syndromes. A patient might genuinely believe that their own family member has been secretly replaced by an identical imposter. Decoding these profound cognitive distortions allows the clinician to identify the true root pathology, rather than mistakenly treating a superficial symptom. Through all of this intensive observation, there is one absolute rule in psychopathology. A diagnosis is never made from a single symptom, and it is strictly reserved for the very end of the mental exam. A true diagnosis requires the integration of every scattered data point collected throughout the clinical funnel. The empathetic interview, the physical motor cues, the memory tests, they must all align into a single coherent picture. This comprehensive picture establishes a robust shared language for medical peers. It gives them the precise insight needed to carefully select the correct treatment strategy for that specific person. The assessment concludes. The silence is broken, the notes are organized, and the invisible structure of the patient's mind has been accurately mapped. By marrying human warmth with clinical precision, this process ensures that the journey to understand another human being remains both systematic and profoundly ethical.